I call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education today, Tuesday, October 25th, 2011. Roll call, please, Mrs. McMahon.
Mr. Armstrong.
Here.
Ms. Caparelli. Mr. Charleston. Mrs. Charlton.
Here.
Mrs. Hancock.
Here.
Mr. Price.
Here.
Mrs. Thomas.
If you could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda, the chair will entertain a motion to appoint Gary Armstrong, Secretary Pro Tem for the October 25th, 2011 meeting of the Board of Education.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay. Then we'll move on to the minutes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the September 27th, 2011 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. And the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the September 27th, 2011 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then October 11th. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the October 11th, 2011 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the October 11th, 2011 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, the next item, are there any public comments? Okay, then the next item is the consent agenda. Are there any questions on it?
So I had just asked if Kevin would say a word or two about the Consortium for Educational Change.
Okay.
Sure. The Consortium for Educational Change, that's a group of school districts that basically pool their resources, and that's the membership fee that the board will be approving this evening goes towards the pool of resources. And as a result of that, as a consortium, we're able to bring in some high-powered speakers, staff development for our staff, and then periodically there are meetings that we attend. Most recently, it's been on the Common Core Learning Standards, Danielson model, and then also professional learning communities. And so it's typically the day there's some type of a speaker or somebody that's working with the school districts, and then as school districts, then you have an opportunity to reflect and plan how you're going to implement some of the ideas and strategies that you learned about.
So our membership gets you access to those things, or are there additional fees when you attend the presentation or meeting?
It depends, and quite honestly, it depends on how high-powered the speaker is. Some of the events are part of the fee that we're paying, and then some there may be an additional cost.
Thank you.
And again, the WTA splits the cost with the district?
Right.
Okay, anything else on that? Okay, then the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. A, personnel recommendations. B, approval of Consortium for Educational Change membership. C, approval of October 2011 expenditure report. And D, ratification of September 2011 regular payroll.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, Mrs. McMahon.
Mr. Armstrong.
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton.
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock.
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes. Present. Hi, Judy.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
Mr. Charleston.
Sorry about that. Yes.
okay, then discussion items. Anderson?
You have the financial package in front of you. We have our first lunch report for the year. And as you can see, our Expenditures are still outpacing revenues for lunches, but we did make a few adjustments, reduce some staffing last year, so they're a little bit more closely aligned to the prior year. We have the fund balance summary for you to review. And investments, right now we have about $9.74 million in investments, and we'll continue to be doing some investments. We'll have another tax distribution at the beginning of November, so we'll be investing some additional funds then. The liability accounts are attached for you, and then the comparison of revenues and expenditures to the prior year and 3-year averages. Not a whole lot has changed for the month of October, but the good news is, or the month of September, sorry. But the good news is that we did receive all but about $9,000 of our FY11 categoricals, which was quicker receipt this year than last year.
You said all but 9,000?
Yeah, all
Oh,
except,
great.
yep. But we're still, running the same scenario as last year. The state continues to owe us about $288,000 for the current fiscal year. We did receive 2 large tax distributions during the month of September, and that totaled just about $8.8 million, and that represents a 94.38% collection rate to date, which is about 2.8% higher than this time last year. So I anticipate the remaining collections will be a little bit smaller to keep us with the same collection rate. In the education and tort funds, the state owes us $179,000 for the current fiscal year. Again, that's the same scenario we've been operating under for the last 2 years. Operations and maintenance fund, nothing really unusual there. The transportation fund, again, we did receive all of our FY11 categorical payments, but the state does owe us $109,000 for the current year. The good news there is that we did receive the payments in September versus December last year, so they are a few months ahead of time. And then as far as expenditures go, and all the funds were pretty much where we need to be, and any fluctuations are really kind of a result of timing of receipt of invoices and payment. Does anyone have any questions?
Well, Kim, I know we talked about it before, but when the money comes in late, it was supposed to be last fiscal year, so that's not accounted for in...
Oh, it's cash, so on our cash, so it's showing on the reports because we report on cash. In our audit, though, depending upon, usually we book payments we anticipate receiving within 60 days of June 30th. So many of those payments are booked into, you'll see them when we get our audit. They'll be counted as revenue for the year we were supposed to receive them.
Okay.
So when we get that, I'll let you know which ones were included and which ones weren't.
Very good.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Next item is the 2011 school report cards and adequate yearly progress.
As we typically do on the fall, I'd like to share with the board some of our school report card data, and technically the information will be released publicly on Monday, the 31st, and people can go to the State Board of Ed website and view the report card data, and we'll also post it on our website as well. But just very quick brushstroke summary, Manning and Miller made adequate yearly progress, and we'll show you the trend data there. The junior high did not. Last year they made adequate yearly progress. This year they did not, and primarily because it's not only the entire building, but then also subgroups. And when you look at the special education students with IEP subgroup for the junior high, that's where those students did not make adequate yearly progress. Therefore, the school did not make adequate yearly progress. And the high school did not make adequate yearly progress as well. To kind of put this in perspective, even though our goal is to make adequate yearly progress, to kind of put this into perspective, and I shared this article with the board in the board update, this past year, 65% of all schools in the state of Illinois did not make AYP. 80% of all school districts did not make AYP. And then when you look at the high school segment, only 8 high schools in the state of Illinois out of 656 high schools did make AYP. And so, and this is something that, you know, administrators, school districts, school boards have been sharing with the state of Illinois and the ISBE, that the parameters that were established for making AYP and the goal of 2014 just wasn't realistic. And so they're reauthorizing No Child Left Behind. The state of Illinois is applying for a waiver, which would basically mean that we would no longer, until they get the new assessments in place and what looks like will be a growth model in place, as long as we're doing things on our end in terms of, and you saw this at the recent board dinner, that you know, going to the growth model with teacher evaluation is part of the teacher evaluation piece, and school districts adopting a growth model, then we can qualify for the waiver. So the next couple of years, until those new assessments are established, we'll probably be under a waiver as a state, and so the data we'll be looking at will start to look a little bit differently as we progress towards this new model.
Okay. How many other states have applied for that waiver? Do we know?
You know, the majority of states have. Not every state has applied for the waiver. I just was looking at that, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but many states are applying for the waiver.
Okay.
Kevin, under the waiver, do you know, will we still get the same type of reports? I know they talked about changing the format and that sort of thing, but will we still be getting reports that say meets or don't meet based on the way the law is written right now?
You know what, we haven't, the state report card's also under revision, and they want to go to a simpler 1-2 page report card. So we're still waiting on that, and so actually there's a lot of questions right now, what it's going to look like. But my guess is there will be some communication to school districts how you're doing compared to other schools in the state.
And I have a question too. Since only 8 high schools made AYP in the state of Illinois, does it seem pretty likely that the waivers will be granted?
You know, it's not only that, but also there has to be some parameters in place as well that the state is implementing. And that's why there's such a big push for the new evaluation tools. You know, we have until 2016 to actually have it in place, but the State Board of Ed is pushing to have something in place sooner than that so that they can qualify for that waiver. So those are the dynamics that are currently happening and being fought politically that will impact schools.
And just one more question, just because like you were saying, we'll post this information, let's say if a parent just goes to look up a report card, when we find out about waivers, would that be something we would post as well? Just because if you're just kind of maybe out of the loop and you don't really know about all that, would the report cards change? The report card themselves change, or would you get some kind of documentation showing about how that works in terms
My
of
guess
adequate
is
yearly progress?
included in the report card data would be some reference to the fact that the state of Illinois qualified for a waiver.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Included in the report card data is also our student demographics for our district, and our if you look at the racial makeup of our district, that really hasn't changed over the previous year. Our percentages are right about the same. Our low income actually has decreased slightly, 37.2%. And the other change for us is our mobility rate was about 8%, our previous report card, and that's down to 6.7%. And we're still, if you compare us to the state, we're still below the state in some of those categories, and our graduation rate is still better than the state of Illinois. Just in terms of the class of 2011 that recently graduated from our high school, we always share this data as well, where our students transition to once they left, once they have exited our school district. And as you can see, 94% of our students go on to the college or university. And that's one of those pieces of data that we've been talking about as a district, and I know at the board level we've been talking about this. all the earmarks are there, that we're doing a nice job preparing our students, but we are working on that piece about, okay, what happens then after year 1 in college or year 2 in college? And at the high school, they did do some exit surveys with students, the class of 2011, as well as other classes that have graduated. And we're going to continue that process and follow up with our students to make sure that within 4 to 5 years, if our students are transitioning to college, and that's their goal, then our students are successful there, or they're successful beyond on high school. So that's part of the data that we'll be adding to our report.
Just curious, are we reaching back a little bit? 2010, 2009, 2008,
Yes.
we're trying, okay.
Yes. They, Steve Carr and the high school, they're making those efforts to reach back and to talk to those students as well. If you take a look at the financial data, what truly stands out, obviously, for our district, no surprise, but 81.6% of our revenue comes from property taxes. And that's why when our community members look at their tax bill and they look at how much of their property tax goes to the schools, that's because 81.6% is funded locally. The state funds about close to 6% of our funding, and as Kim has pointed out, in the past, that was money you could count on. That's becoming less and less of a factor that we can count on. Then federal dollars are about 5.6%.
That other local, that would be like rents that we receive, student fees and all that kind of stuff.
Student fees, those types of, exactly.
Okay.
When you look at the expenditure, again, not anything shocking there. 76.8% of our budget goes towards the education fund, which is primarily salaries and benefits. School districts, we're a service organization. We don't produce a product per se. You can make the argument that graduating students is your product or curriculum is your product. But the reality is we provide a service, and any service organization, personnel is going to be the bulk of your budget. And so 76.8% ends up being our expenditures. When we start taking a look at the actual building data, if you take a look at Manning Elementary, and this kind of tells you the story of what's going on in the building since 2005. The cut score this year is 85%. Schools needed to have 85% of their students meet or exceed in order to make adequate yearly progress. And as you can see, at Manning, we had an slight increase in our math scores, as well as an increase in our reading scores, and still above that 85%.
And those are aggregate scores across all 3 grades that get tested?
Correct.
So it's not one grade per se, and it's just a
Right.
smashing together of those 3 years. And
Right. That's for the building.
okay.
When we look at Miller, Miller again, if you take a look at the reading, is 81.8%, and then the math is 91.8%. So a little bit of an increase in the reading and a little bit of a drop in the math. And then when you take a look at the junior high, our math is a 91.1%, and then our reading was 85.5%, and those, again, amount to increases for that building as well. The high school is the Prairie State Achievement Exam. I know I explained this last year for the board, but the Prairie State Achievement Exam is a two-day exam. The first day is the ACT. And again, this is one of the reasons why in the state of Illinois you have 8 high schools making AYP, because the ACT was never designed to be an achievement exam. It was designed to be a sorter as a predictor of who would be successful at the college level, at different types of colleges and universities, and also for scholarship opportunities. And so the state of Illinois, in order to try to meet the No Child Left Behind legislation, adopted the ACT as part of the achievement exam at the high school level. And that's what's being reflected now with the scores that we're seeing across the state. Day 2 is the work keys, which is another test developed by ACT. And that's supposed to be more a predictor of what types of careers students would be most suited for. That was why the work keys was developed. And so you have the exams, and the difficult part in motivating students. The ACT they see value to because they can use that score for college entrance. The work keys, the students don't see a lot of value to, and so there's a lot of work that's done at the high school level trying to get students invested into that test taking, and ends up being difficult. If you look at the ACT portion, you'll notice that and this would be the class of 2011, their ACT score. And as you can see, we're continuing that increase to 21.8. Right now, we're not able to draw comparisons to other school districts or other counties, and that's because, again, the information hasn't been released. And once it is, then the Illinois Interactive Report Card will allow us to take a look at comparisons to other districts.
But if it, if we compare that 21.8 to last year's ACTs, particularly in DuPage County, I think that jumps us over Willowbrook. So last year we were 16 out of 22. Would clearly make us 15. If there's any deterioration in Lisle, which had a composite of 22, you've got a look at maybe being as high as 14 out of 22 in DuPage County, the wealthiest county in Illinois, with 10 of the finest high schools in the state. And quite candidly, my check on last year's numbers is that 21.8 puts us very close to the top 10% of all high schools in the state of Illinois. It's like 12 or something. It's a really fine number.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what we'll find once we get all that information. And then the one thing that we also like to take a look at is cohort performance, or in other words, if we take a look at the same group of students as they move through the system. Obviously, it's not the exact same group of students because of students moving in and out of the district. But as you can see, the class of 2012, our current seniors, you can see that they've been pretty consistent as they move through our district. And then, it's a little bit unfair putting on that Prairie State because now you're going from the ISAT, which is truly aligned to the state standards, to the Prairie State exam. But that kind of gives you an idea of our current seniors. Our current juniors haven't taken the Prairie State. And that's one of the other difficulties with the testing at the high school. There's only the 1 year, that one window you're looking at, and so you go from 8th grade until junior year, and so you're not able to see incrementally what is occurring. And so that kind of gives you an idea of the current juniors. Our current sophomores, again, pretty consistent performance as they move through our system. And this would be our current freshmen and where they're at. And then this would be our current 8th graders. They took the exam as 7th graders, and so you can see that their reading has been, the last 2 years has been pretty consistent. We did see, and for some reason that score, I couldn't get that score to show up for the math, but it's 91 percentile for the math. And then for our current 7th graders who took this is up through the 6th grade, you can see that consistently with the math, and then an increase with our reading in the last year. And then the current 6th graders, again, a nice increase in the reading and pretty consistent with the math. And then this, what is to kind of illustrate for you, and this is something that we'll be able to pull off the Illinois Interactive Report Card once we're able to see that data after Monday. And what this, I know the numbers are small, what we're looking at is the top curve is the performance of 5th graders, and it's not, again, a cohort, but these are different 5th grade students or classes as they move through our district, starting in 1999 through 2011. The top score is all students, and then the bottom score, or rather non-IEP students, and then the bottom score is IEP students. And this is what we refer to as an achievement gap. And as you can see, it's a pretty significant difference between where our non-IEP students are and our IEP students are. And so this is an area we've had some conversations with Linda Cloudwater, our Director of Special Education Services, and as an administrative team. And this is something that we really want to take a look at, our special ed program, special ed services. And this is somewhere, you start talking about, okay, where can we make significant impacts with our students and our test scores, and this is definitely an area we can take a look at. And the services we're providing and actually what are we doing for our students, and making sure that while we're, definitely you're providing resources for our students with IEPs, but we're not lowering our standards for students with IEPs. And so we want to, definitely one of our goals as a district is to see that gap close. And then we're also, you're not going to see as significant of a gap between, low income versus students who are non-low income. And the other area that we're looking at is our minority student population. And the problem there is when we're trying to figure out what happened with the reporting, because when you look at, for some reason, certain years, there's no data for that group of students. And the way that it's intended to work is if you have at least 10 students testing, there should be data recorded. And we're pretty confident for some of those years, we're reporting more than 10 students in various subgroups. And so we're trying to find out why it's not reflected in the, on the Illinois Interactive Report Card. But this kind of, when we start talking about the achievement gap and what's occurring, for instance, this year at the junior high, this is what we're looking at. And it's definitely something that we want to focus on and improve upon. In terms of next steps, and a lot of, Dan and I had a conversation earlier today about the test data, not to steal his thunder a little bit, but a lot of the things that we've been doing, test-taking strategies and familiarizing our students with certain types of test questions and those types of things, that will only improve our scores to a certain point. And now, where we're at kind of as a district is we need that change in culture. And that's what we've been focusing on this year with the higher quality teaching and that emphasis, and working towards that to change that culture so that we can start to close those achievement gaps and see that significant improvement in achievement. And so, we need to start focusing on those problem-solving skills, higher level thinking skills, literacy definitely. And by literacy, it's not only reading, but it's understanding what we read and then also being able to articulate. We need to address those achievement gaps, continue our work with response to intervention. We approve the Consortium for Educational Change and rely on those resources for us. Differentiated instruction, that's going to go a long way towards those achievement gaps that we're seeing. And then also as we start to move towards those professional learning communities, that's another avenue for us to take a look at data, take a look at instruction, see how it's impacting the classroom, and then making those adjustments as we move through a year, rather than waiting for the spring of every year to test our students. We want to start to develop our own assessments so that we can measure progress. And when when the state moves to that growth model, that's basically what we're going to have to be able to do, is demonstrate that our students are growing academically as they move through a given year within our school district. And it's also those subgroups as well. We have to be able to demonstrate that academic growth there. So that, in a nutshell, is some of our data from our school report card. Any questions, or yes, Jen?
So related to the next steps, this is a next steps that's district-wide. When you look at the data and the results, are you going to go through and prioritize places that need more immediate attention? We're a couple months into the school year. Really, by the time we have holidays and everything else, these tests are coming. They're coming
right.
quickly again, and we get this data so late, and then hit the holidays and all these other things. Just seems like we can't afford to wait to address places where the achievement gaps are showing obvious challenges.
Right, and that you're talking short-term and long-term. Definitely, we're having those conversations, about those achievement gaps and how to address those, for this year. Part of that, though, again, is a lot of the things that we've been doing as a district have been kind of those quick fixes, and now we're getting to a point where we need to really roll up our sleeves. And so While I'm confident we'll start to close that gap, unfortunately, it's going to be, you know, a year or two down the road that we'll really start to see some significant impact on those.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, I wouldn't necessarily characterize what we did at the high school as a quick fix, because I know that, you know, Steve Carr and his staff and those guys worked pretty hard at that. But what we did do, just to understand what we did at the high school, in 2007, our overall meet and exceed at the high school for the Prairie State was 51%. In 2008, you know, the administration responded to that, and the board at the time responded to that and put in place incentives, test incentives for the kids to take both the ACT and the second day of testing seriously, which is a problem statewide, where kids in high-achieving districts don't take that second day seriously. So we put in some incentives there, and we did do some, you know, prep work in terms of the testing prep work. So, for instance, in 2008, our you know, from 2007 at 51% meet and exceeds at the Prairie State, you know, we jumped right away to 59 and hit a high in terms of overall meet and exceed at 65.7, which was last year's report card. This year's report card showed a dip in that overall meet and exceed from 65.7 to 61.9. The 21.8 ACT, I'm going to relate that cohort ties to the 65.7 Prairie State, if I
Right.
Yeah. So, and that was our high watermark for Prairie State achievement. You know, this year, obviously, the Prairie State, the last test cohort, didn't do as well. So next year, I would expect either that the ACT plateaus or you know, dips a little bit. But again, based on where we've come from, even in the ACT, in 2006, we had a composite ACT of 20.5, which pretty much matched the state average. The state average for composite ACT has effectively not moved. It's 20.5, 20.6. 20.5, 20.6. This year it's 20.6. But our ACT moved from 20.5 to 20.7 to 21.3, 21.4, and 21.8. And suddenly we're very close to a top 10% type high school. I think, in all candor, I think we're getting as much out of our kids as we can get now without, you know, real fundamental sort of culture shift. And that's long, hard work. So for as much work and really solid work as all of the educators in the districts have done, but you know, at the high school, what we've done, for as much as that's been very solid, you know, it's almost like now comes the even harder work. So, but first, congratulations on the ACT. That's a great accomplishment, and I'm exceptionally proud of that number. It's a good number. There is a couple other things. You know, I have to touch on the grade schools for a second, because there's actually you know, just a really amazing story about how we have two fantastic grade schools. Two fantastic grade schools. The way the ISAT composites are kind of mushed together, third, fourth, and fifth, and presented as meet and exceeds, unfortunately, in my opinion, don't tell that story well. The way to tell that story, in my opinion, because grade school, the culmination of a grade school experience is fifth grade. And to look at fifth grade, Manning this year had the highest reading meet and exceeds it's had in the last 4. Manning had the highest exceed. And exceed matters on the ISAT because that exceed correlates to better performance ultimately on Prairie State and ACT and stuff like that. So meet, while it's a happy event, unfortunately ISATs are among the easiest achievement tests in the nation, and so it's not a terribly compelling barometer to say that we meet some of the weakest standards in the country. But exceeds is a good standard, and I'll tell you what, Manning had a fantastic, you know, sort of reading event this year. Manning had a fantastic improvement in their math event this year as well. Moving from, you know, meet and exceeds last year of 89 and exceeds of 28 to an exceeds of 39% and a meet and exceeds of 93.5. Fantastic improvement. Miller, again, judging an education at grade school by the culmination of that experience. Miller continues to just kill it, particularly math, where the previous 2 years we were 100% meet and exceeds in a school that has 48% low income and 17% limited English. 100% meets and exceeds the previous 2 years. This year they dipped to 95. Still a fantastic, fantastic number. Their reading dipped a little bit, but in the exceeds category, it doubled. So their reading at the 5th grade level, meet and exceeds at 85.8. Again, in light of the demographics there, it's just Herculean, what's being accomplished there. So really proud of what's going on, in particular at the grade schools. The high school has done a fantastic job. The junior high is doing a good job. There's some spaces there that we, I think, as you guys look at it, I'm sure you'll find, things that we can focus on in there. Just a great story about Westmont 201. Its schools, its kids, and its families. Just a great, great story.
Can I add a couple of comments? I thank you for sharing with us the survey results from the Institute Day, and where high-quality teaching was, again, the focus of the year. But what I enjoyed reading was some of the feedback from the teachers, where people are talking about that teachers are teaching teachers, and that concepts were produced by fellow educators. There just seemed to be a theme throughout about collaboration among the whole district. That kind of came out quite a bit. So, and looking at this, using District 201 experts, and again, there's no names connected with any of this, but making connections with grade level colleagues. I was very happy to see this because it does talk about the work that's going on. A lot of credit given to the PLCs and the DLTs. And so I'll be very curious to see how this real intense focus on our high quality teaching then relates to grades, because obviously grades, there's a reason there's a report card. But I'll be very curious to see as we move forward a lot of discussion about collaboration, discussion between the buildings, not just horizontally, vertically. But it really sounds like, just hearing the feedback from one Institute Day, it sounds like, obviously there's areas to grow on, but it definitely talks about, working collaboratively. And it sounds like that was appreciated by the staff. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out and stuff. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Kevin, to me, I guess the ACT score is the most critical one. It's kind of the culmination of the high school experience, and certainly has a lot of meaning for the individual students. I think it also has a lot of meaning for our community in general, because I think that's what people do look at, when they're evaluating, should I move to a community, should I, what are the schools like? These report cards are one of the things that they may look at, in addition to talking to members in the community and the schools themselves. So it's great to see the nice progress on the ACT scores over time, that gradual inching upward. To me, comparison to our neighboring districts, our surrounding districts is important, because I don't think students should necessarily be limited by what street they live on. If over there's Downers Grove or Darien, or, and so we want to blend in as best we can with our surrounding districts, and I know we have some unique challenges based on where we're located and the demographics of our surrounding districts. I very much like a little bit what Dan was referencing about, that we're moving up and approaching the midpoint in DuPage County. And that in combination with creating this environment that is unique, I think will be an overall, a significant something that sets us apart from our surrounding districts. So if we truly believe that being small is an advantage, then I look forward to seeing some of those unique experiences develop, because I think that will increase student interest in school, which I think is one of the key elements of perpetuating that success, is the students kind of pushing each other more and more and getting more out of the school experience. And just wanted to see if I had any other questions. You mentioned that the low income rate went down, so that was district-wide. Were any others, we have 2 Title I schools?
Right, this year we have 2 Title I schools.
And is there a particular cutoff percentage that designates a school as a Title I, or?
I think it's 40%.
40%, I think.
Okay.
For an individual
Yeah,
building.
I was looking at some of the numbers, and I noticed we crossed, one was over 30. I think the high school was 29 last year and then 37 this year. But I didn't know if that was had any impact on funding or any of that sort of thing. So I was quite questioning that. Talking about closing the achievement gap, especially within our district, I think summer school could have a key element there. The ability to provide an educational experience that is in sequence with what students are currently learning. It's one thing we kind of talked about a little bit at the SACID meeting. The summer school program there is that they have a separate program because they have districts or kids coming from multiple districts. They have a separate program that they purchase and have as a summer school program. But if we had a summer school program that built off the previous year and just kind of flowed into the next year, that may be one important element for closing that achievement gap. So I look forward to hearing more about that in the upcoming meetings. ACT score is utilized. So if a student takes the ACT and they decide they're not going to college right away, is that score still valid a couple of years down the road? Does it matter when they go to enter into, if they choose to go to college?
If they were going to a community, let's say they left high school, went to a community college, and started a college transcript, that ACT score has little to no value in it. But let's say I graduate from high school, work for a year, and then apply to ISU. That ACT score is still of value.
Okay. Just as a matter of importance for students who might think they're not ever going to go to college, but kids change their mind all the time. So
most do. Most end up going to higher education sometime.
So, but I'm very happy with the progress that's being made. Great.
Thank you.
Just to piggyback the choosing the community, Kevin, when you do that, when you do the State of the District address, that whole notion of the real estate community.
Sure.
The real estate community. They need to hear this story, and not just in terms of just, we're at 21.8, but where is 21.8? And not just in DuPage, because when people are looking for houses, if you're looking for a house in the neighboring communities to our east,
Right.
then the numbers are much bigger. If you're looking for houses in the neighboring community to our west, the numbers are much bigger. But people who are looking for houses in our area are generally looking in places like Lombard or communities like that. So they're looking further. They're looking further. So a relative, external data points to give us a sense for where we really fit, not just DuPage, but the greater Chicago area, because that's where we need to tell that story to the real estate community, in my opinion.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Karen's done. Okay, then the next item on the agenda is the extension to file the annual financial report.
Well, as we've done in the last few years, our auditors have had to file an extension for the annual financial report, which now will be due, I think, November 14th. The regional superintendent did approve that, and I'm hoping to have a draft of the audit by the end of the week. I know we asked them to have everything done by October, but that deadline has come and gone.
So they've got 2 weeks anyway, I mean, so, okay. Because we need that for PMA. Right.
Yep, I'm well aware.
And Kim, they initially told us that they were expecting to be on time, which was October 14th.
Right, and I still don't have a draft to review.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent's report, please.
With the superintendent's report first, with regards to facility planning, the hope was that Steve Cashman would have something to us by Friday. He didn't. Mike Maros was checking with him today. I didn't have a chance to touch base with Mike. But our plan is next week to have a meeting with Marker School District to talk a little bit about the utilization of South. And then I think the board, you should plan on the 8th because if, hopefully we'll have Steve here who can give us an update. But then we also have to begin that conversation of financing any significant, work that we want to do next summer. So we need to start having those conversations. So if you could, November 8th, 7 o'clock, we'll make sure that we're here to have those conversations and begin that process. With regard to strategic planning, we had a meeting last night. I think it was pretty productive. Each of the subgroups kind of put together their best thoughts in terms of goals and action plans. And now we're going to take a smaller group and take a look at their work, wordsmith it a little bit, put it into a template, and then we'll be bringing it back to the committee for one last final blessing that we've captured their thoughts and ideas. And so the goal would be, if we can't get that accomplished by the end of November, definitely December, have something for the board to look at and approve. Climate Committee, we had our most recent meeting, which was on October 17th. And the principals reported kind of the things that they're doing this year thus far to help improve climate in their buildings. And some of the things that are happening at the high school, the building principal, Steve Carr, has been having lunch with random groups of students to talk about their experience, what they like, what they don't like, what we can do better. At the junior high, they're forming a student leadership committee in which any student, basically any student that wants to make the commitment to be involved will be allowed to be involved. To, again, help along those lines. What can we do to make our building better and more welcoming for students? At the 2 elementary buildings, they're also doing the principal luncheons. And then I know at Manning, they did, what was it, Switch? What was
Mix
that?
It Up Day.
Mix It Up Day, in which they asked students, rather than typically if you walk into any cafeteria, the kids all go to the same tables that they always do. And what they did was they had students sit by the month of their birth. So all the October birthdays sat in one area, all the November. And so it kind of takes students out of their comfort zone a little bit, but you get to meet other students and talk to other students. So definitely some positive things are occurring. And then November 15th will be our next meeting. And again, we're hoping to have a representative from Downers Grove Township there as well to talk a little bit about tolerance and anti-bullying with the committee as well, and some of the resources that are available there as well. The next superintendent coffee is scheduled for November 29th at 7 o'clock at Miller Elementary. And depending upon, I'll probably have 2 presentations ready to go. One may be similar to what I did last month if we have a larger group and maybe some different faces. If we get kind of the same faces, then that presentation will be geared more towards the report card data and some of that information that was shared this evening. So I'll kind of wait to see the group I have and then make a decision which one to go with.
Okay. Board reports. I had a couple things that I wanted to share. You know, we talk about our small schools. One thing that we are should be very proud of is our fine arts department. And since our last board meeting, there were 2 concerts. There was the fall choral concert, and there was also the jazz concert. And if you've not ever had an opportunity to go to the jazz concert, it really is a wonderful evening. It is the jazz choir, the jazz band, and artwork hanging in the school by the students. And it's a lot of fun because it's very different from any other kind of concert. The idea is that you're supposed to get up and mingle, and there's light snacks, and the mood, the lighting is very different, and it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for our district to kind of show off some of the wonderful work that our fine arts department does. And so that was a lot of fun. That was last week, and the fall concert was the week before. So again, small school, but very successful fine arts department. And 4 of our high school students just recently made it into the IMEA. I've got a lot of initials tonight. And that's a statewide concert, and so 4 of our students made it into that. And then last thing is both Thursday and Friday of this week, at Manning Elementary, there's a book fair which is open to the district. There's some wonderful find there. I think the junior high is having a book fair as well, and it's in conjunction with their parent-teacher conference. So that is open to the district, so anybody could stop in and purchase a book. So that's what I had. Are there any other board reports?
I have a couple of things. Excuse me. I agree, Marie. I attended the Jazz Cafe as well. It was just really great to see the number of students we have and the talents that they possess. You know, just fantastic performances, and it was a nice environment. And like you mentioned, getting up and kind of milling about, carrying on, you know, little highs, how are you conversations during the event, I think added to a nice relaxing evening rather than kind of sitting quiet and attentive. But I don't think I missed any of the performances, so great event. I had one thing, and I actually wanted to bring it up during the approval of the minutes, and that was the board, the expectations that we approved at the last board meeting. If we talked about putting that on the website, I believe, and so I think that would be something that would be, you know, a nice reference piece on the board's page. The superintendent's expectations of the board's expectations of superintendent and each other. That I think we kind of agreed we would do that. Okay. And then lastly, I have the SACID report for the last meeting, which was September, I want to say 23rd. The primary content for that meeting had to do with the summer school programming that wrapped up over the summer. And the summer school program for SACID went from 7-5 through 7-29. And there's basically 2 programs that they run. One is for the low incidence students, and that is at Swartz School in District 48, and they served 153 students from member districts. And low incidence programs generally serve students who have who are deaf or hard of hearing, visually impaired, or have physical impairments. And then SACID also has a multi-needs summer school program, and that is at 3 different locations. Prairie View School in District 66, and at SASID Southeast Alternative School and the Transition House in Westmont. And that program served 282 students from member districts. Multi-needs generally include students who have emotional and behavioral issues, autism, speech IEPs, and students with combinations of several disabilities. The low incidence summer programming, the focus this year was on reading and literacy skills, and they piloted a new reading program for their K through 2 students called Voyager Passport. They spent 90 minutes each day on reading and literacy, and the students were benchmarked on day 2 of summer school and then once a week thereafter. And the main purpose of summer school, SASID summer school program is so that students maintain proficiency and don't lose skills over the summer months. And so they measure success of the program by the percent of students that maintain or improve their skills. And for the low incidence programming, 97% of the students participating maintained skills. For the summer of 2012, SASID has plans to expand the new Voyager Passport curriculum through grades 4. They want to investigate a written language program for grades 5 through 12. And there was also a parent survey that went out asking parents if they what their preferences were for the length of the summer school day. And a majority of the parents would like to see a little longer summer school programming, so they were going to investigate that, possibly increasing or looking at increasing maybe a half hour or an hour. So that was one of the things they were going to look at for next year. For the multi-needs summer programming, they piloted or initiated a new program called SPLASH, and I'm not particularly sure if that's an acronym or just a title for the program, but that was also for grades K through 2. And students, again, were benchmarked and monitored twice a week in that program. 95% of the students at Prairie View School maintained or improved their skills. And Prairie View has the pre-K through junior high students, a large percentage of them. And then at the Southeast Alternative School, and the Transition House he had numbers here, had the rest of the students. It was about, I didn't break it down. It was about half and half. Half students went to Prairie View, half went to the other sites. And collectively, as a whole, the multi-needs students, 77% of them maintained or improved their skills. And there was the primary reason for a loss of skills over the summer was due to absences and poor behavior. Parent feedback for both programs were very well received by parents, and parents appreciated the teacher-to-home communications that they initiated this year. And then for 2012, SASID looks to implement their SPLASH curriculum through grades 3 and 4 at Prairie View School, and they're talking about, or at least investigating, possibly piloting some sort of speech clinic for students that have speech IEPs, where they may be able to offer some services to those students, but not on an everyday basis, but maybe once a week or some sort of limited programming. And they're also looking at tutoring possibilities for students who don't necessarily qualify for extended school year through their IEP, but do have needs. So I did kind of make a note that might be one possibility to explore it, as a collaboration or partnership for any summer programming, that maybe there's an opportunity there to work with SASID on some sort of partnership for summer school. And they were thinking about developing some sort of services brochure for summer offerings to make it clearer to districts and to parents the types of things that will be offered in 2012. And I think that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Joel. Anything else? Then just future meetings, the next school board meeting is November 8th at 7 o'clock. And then the State of the District address will be November 17th at the Westmont Center at 11:30 a.m. And then the chair will entertain a motion to enter the closed session for purpose of discussing negotiations and personnel issues.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Charleston?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
And there is not going to be a vote afterwards.